Hey guys, welcome back to Flying Sea Farming Outdoors, and today I just want to show you guys a little knife repair and knife maintenance that I do. This is the Kershaw dividend. As you can see, the spring on it is not broke, but it's lost its tension or memory, whatever you want to call it. I've adjusted the pivot and it's still not flying out, and I took it apart and it's not broken. So I went to Kershaw's website and you can actually order replacement parts. And so they sent me a new spring in the mail, and I just want to show you guys how I replace this spring and the materials and tools that I use to get this job done. And it's the Loctite, blue Loctite is what I use, KPL knife shield, the Lucas gun grease, real good stuff, KPL original, KPL dry film, and I use some alcohol swabs. And this is the NAF's knife maintenance tool, as you can see right here. Pretty cool. Same, I think it's Ben Peterson who owns the NAFs. I think it's the Lander that he's got. And anyways, I bought his little tool with the bits on it. Seems to be working out good. And the KPL is real good for knife corrosion on your blade. So any kind of steel you've got that's got a real corrosive blade on it, such as this D2 on the edge here, I put the KPL knife shield on it. And I just want to take you guys along, show you guys how I replace this spring on it, and hopefully we'll get this thing back to life and popping out like new. So let's do a little hardware check. Let's see, I've got a T8 in here right now. I think that's going to fit our pivot. Yep, T8 on the pivot. Set that over here. I think it's a T6 on the body screws. It's pretty cool. This thing's magnetized, so these things are not coming out, especially when you got these O-rings on there. Yep, that's a T6. Let's check, make sure that's what this is. Yep, T6 on the body screws, T8 on the pivot is all you'll need to break this knife down. So let's get started. As you can see, the pivot was pretty loose from where I took it apart the other night. And I probably had this thing apart 3 or 4 times, because when I first got it, the action was real gritty. It still is, and I put some of the KPL knife lube on it. I bought a Kershaw not too long ago, and the pivot on it was real gritty, and come to find out from the factory, they put a ton of Loctite on it. And so I thought that's what was causing the grittiness, but after I took it apart, I ended up finding out that that wasn't the case, and I'll show you guys here in a second what I think is causing the grittiness on this knife here. These little screws these little T6 torques can be aggravating. Alright, we lost one. Let's see if we can find it. So be very careful as you're taking this apart. Good thing is I found it. There we go. So just be real careful. Put the back spacer over here. Shield. Go ahead and take the blade off. Set it over here. And here's the spring. As you guys can tell, well, it's not broken, so I'm not real sure what made it lose its tension. Oh, I think I do see. what's caused it. We compare it to the new one they sent me. It looks like the spring got bent. So here's a new one. You can tell the right here is where it's gotten a lot more bent than the one that they sent me. So that's our problem right there. So we'll set this old one off to the side. We'll start wiping some of this old grease and stuff off. And I'd highly suggest getting some type of mat or something like I've got the Smoky Mountain Knife Works mat. I think any vendor has about got their own kind. So this is just one that I got. I think it was a Christmas deal. You order some certain type of knife and they brought the mat. And it's real good because you can keep up with screws besides one flies off like a while ago. But we did find it, so that's good. First thing I do is just wipe everything down, get all the old remnants of the oil and grease off, and kind of start fresh with everything. Let's see. Take our washers off. Wipe the blade on down. Okay. Yep. We're gonna go ahead and this is where the grease comes in handy. It comes from the factory with like a white grease, but I use my for cleaning my guns and stuff. I use this Lucas gun grease, extreme duty, and it does real good. Don't have any complaints with it. Let's see. Just wipe all the excess off. So we'll even put some fresh grease in there. These things can be kind of tricky to put back together and take apart, as you can see, but it's probably not the worst knife I've ever taken apart. Probably the Spyderco Mannix is definitely the worst knife I've ever taken apart. I've actually got it still in a bag where I can't get it put back together. The little ceramic ball that's in those, you have to kind of pat your belly and scratch your head at the same time. And I just ain't got that figured back out yet. So I think that's about everything we've got. Let's wash these washers off, scrub them off real good. All right. Well, so we can start putting this thing back together now. Earlier, as I was telling you guys, why I think it's so gritty, as you can see around the pivot here on both sides, they don't, if they would have took this where the bronze washers are and polished that back to regular steel and polished that up a lot, I think that's where my grittiness has come from, because this blade has kind of got a matte, gritty finish to it. I think that's where I'm getting all my grittiness from. But after I get everything wiped off, I'll take these alcohol swabs, clean all the excess off that you can real good. So yeah, keep all that together. Clean this side off, and the other side. And that's about it. Let me clean the blade side off. So get any little junk that you couldn't get by scrubbing it off. I think that's about it. And guys, this is what I do. I take this, the KPL dry lube is what I do first. And we've still got the pivot barrel in here, and I just add about 2 drops of the dry film and kind of work it around. And this stuff, I don't know if you guys have had any of this yet, but this stuff's like magic to me. That if you blow on it, you can watch it evaporate. It's kind of like alcohol, but it leaves behind like a nice slick base. And then once I do that, I come back with the KPL original and just put 2 more drops and kind of rub that around. Then we'll go ahead and put our washer back in. And it's got 2 different size washers, so make mind of that. And I use the big washer first, go down on the pivot there. Then we'll come back with some more of the dry film and put it back on top of the washer. What I do, just a little bit goes a long way on this kind of stuff. And I just kind of run it across there and then kind of blow on it, let it evaporate off, and then we'll come back, put just a little drop there and a little drop there, and kind of run that around. We'll put our knife blade on. You kind of building it back like a sandwich, so to speak. All right. And you can put the next washer down on top of that. Run that on around. This dry film stuff runs out pretty fast. Take some of that back off. Take the original, run it on there. I'm gonna blow this on off. All right. And take a small washer. And what I've done before to help any grittiness or any, if you want to smooth it out even smoother, is if you'll take these bronze washers and get you a strop and just drop it ever so slightly, you can get these things really shined up. So I did that on both sides of these the first time I took it apart. All right, let's put the stop pin back in. There we go. So it's just like kind of like building a sandwich. And what you do now is I'll go ahead and put some grease back in here. This is, if you've ever had a Kershaw knife with a speed assist and it's making a clanking noise whenever you fire it out, it's because this grease inside here has all dried up. So if you'll take this grease and just run it out and then kind of smear it around in there, all it's doing is quietening the action down, because if you don't, it's going to be metal on metal and it's going to sound real springy to you. All right, there we go. That should be plenty. Put that back up. Oh, before we put the spring down, I always take a little bit of this grease and kind of smear it on here. I'm talking about just a little bit though. And kind of work it in with your hands. Like this here. All right. Now is what you want to do is fit this in this hole where the blade is, and then this will rest here. tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put a little bit of grease right here where you can see this been rubbing over time. Just kind of help hold all this together. And we got to do our little tricky part of putting the front back on. So let's see. Now we've got grease in it. Got the spring set into the hole here, and I don't ever lock mine fully open, so I've got the lock disengaged and sitting about halfway open. And then you can kind of put this pivot back down like that. And I hold off on the backspacer for right now, and I go ahead and put my pivot screw in, which is here, and I put just a little bit of Loctite on it. Drop it down in the hole, and remember this was a T8 on the pivot. And you ain't gotta tighten it up right now. All you're doing is just holding everything down to keep it, the spring and everything from popping back apart. Now here comes a little bit more of the tricky part of how I put the backspacer in. And the backspacer, if you'll notice, there's a little notch in it, and that's for the lanyard loophole here. If you'll kind of start up here where the pivot's already down and kind of work it in. There we go. It's a little tricky. All right, got that lined up. Put a little bit of Loctite on that. Just a little bit, guys. A little bit goes a long way, especially with this Loctite stuff. Like I said, I had a Kershaw knife straight from the factory, and they made a mess out of that stuff. Now we can put these other ones in. You have to kind of spread it apart as you work this back in. All right. Put these other two screws back in. That's that one. And the last one. Let's see, that was a T6. We'll put our T6 back in. That one. That one. And I'm just snug, I ain't tightening anything. Alright guys, we're just gonna tighten these, play with these pivot screws a little bit. Now that we got that spring in there. Yeah, that's good. No blade play. The centering's always been off on this knife, even from the factory. So let's see here. Gonna have to play with these screws a little bit. It's like it's rubbing just a little bit. Loosen the pivot up too. Alright, it ain't rubbing. That's about what it was when we got it from the factory. See if it's, yeah, I pushed it on that a little bit. Wipe my hands off real quick. Wipe this blade off. Wipe the handle off a little bit too. Let's see. Action's pretty good on it. Check the centering. It's not rubbing. But some of these you just can't get centered. Like I said, it come from the factory office. So as long as it ain't rubbing, I'm good. Put this back the way it was. The last thing I do is no blade play. We're going to use this KPL knife shield and coat the blade. Shake it up pretty good, and I take and squirt just a little bit on one of these Hank's wipes, hankies, whatever you want to call them, and just rub it in there like this. Keep that corrosion down, especially on that D2 steel. And then let that sit for a minute and evaporate off. Then you just go back and rub it off. Find a little clean spot on a rag here. All right, check the action one more time. I think this thing's flying out harder than when I first got it now, which is good. I don't know if you guys' dividends are any like mine. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but man, the lockup on this thing is super early, really early. Almost scary early. I mean, it's just hanging on there by a natural end, if you know what I mean. And from the reviews I've read online, most of them are like this. But it hasn't ever failed me, and you can definitely see that it's locked. Which I guess the good thing about it is it's got a lot of wearing into it that it can go. I mean, you don't think you'll ever wear this lock out as early as it's locking up. So that's that. So we're good to go there. And there's our old spring. We'll set it off to the side. And so a T6 and T8 for the pivot screw and T6 for the body screws. Highly suggest the KPL knife shield for the corrosion resistance on the knife itself. And it's real good about getting tape gunk and residue and all that kind of stuff off. The KPL gun grease for the around the spring area to keep that thing quiet. And then I'll run in the KPL dry film, the KPL original, real good stuff. And then the blue Loctite in the stick form is what I like to use. Well, guys, if you like the teardown and the maintenance and the repair, putting spring back on there, just give us a like and subscribe, and see if we can do a few more videos for you guys. And we'll catch you on the next one.